We were anxious to get moving, and it, in a sense, probably accelerated our going into the 747.
Boeing's big gamble began in the forested hills of Everett, Washington, 30 miles north of Seattle. Boeing didn't have a factory large enough in which to build a jumbo jet, so an army of workers set about constructing one. Undeterred by the relentless Washington rain, Boeing engineers began construction of the first 747 before the roof of the $200 million factory was completed. With the future of the company at stake, all the company energy and resources were thrown at the massive project.
They were very, very motivated. The workforce, there was no need to try to energize them. They were on a very romantic task. They're building the world's largest airplane. They had an enthusiasm that welled up, and finally someone coined the word that they were the Incredibles. And they really did a yeoman's job. Yeah.
On September 30th, 1968, it was time to celebrate.
26 months ago, as we stood amidst the forest up here at Everett, and the decision was made to go forward with the 747 program, the magnitude of the task that we were faced with really looked formidable.
"26 stewardesses, representing the 26 airlines that have ordered 158 747s, take part in the christening ceremony."
If you haven't got a bottle, raise your hand.
Since the plane's first commercial flight in 1970, Boeing 747s have carried more than 1 billion people to all corners of the Earth. The success of the 747 prompted Boeing to develop several other versions of the airplane, including a short range, a special performance model, and an all-freight model. The 747 has also been used to carry the space shuttle. And in perhaps its most prestigious role, the 747 serves as the presidential aircraft, Air Force One. The 747-400, Boeing's long-range version of the jumbo jet, was introduced in February of 1989. Bigger, stronger, and faster than previous models, the 747-400 still looks nearly identical to the original. Digital avionics have replaced the old analog systems, and the new 747 reflects 20 years of technological progress. Capable of carrying 420 passengers more than 8,000 miles, the 400 will continue the 747's proud legacy well into the next century.
The jet aircraft as a whole has revolutionized the world. I mean, it's democratized the world. It's a very egalitarian kind of thing now. When you get it into a Heathrow, for example, you see 50 different nationalities. You don't even know the countries. You can't even identify the people where they're from. You hear all the different languages, but everybody knows which booths to go to, and when they get on the airplane, they know how to get their drinks and so on. So it's a very egalitarian system. The 747 has accelerated this because it's able to fly so far.
While the 747 remains the most familiar commercial airplane, the cost of operating a 400-seat aircraft can be quite high, and the airlines have recognized that the jumbo jet is not always the best option. So airplane manufacturers have developed other airplanes to fly routes for which the 747 was too big. One of these airplanes, the Boeing 767, was introduced in the early 80s. This twin-engine jet typically carries about 200 passengers, serving medium-range routes of about 2,500 to 3,000 miles. the late 80s, there emerged a need for a plane about the size of the 767, but with longer range. The 767's two engines were not powerful enough to handle longer trips, and the airlines expressed their desire for a brand new airplane to fill this niche. Under pressure from competitors and from the airlines, Boeing gambled once again and beat the odds.
We carry about 300 people on the airplane, and we fly at decimal 84 Mach, which is 84% the speed of sound. We normally cruise at around 37,000 feet, plus or minus, depending on the winds and the weight. But that's probably a typical flight for this aircraft.
The development and construction of the 777 was a tremendous task. Never before had computer technology been so closely intertwined with the production of a modern airliner. Boeing distributed 2,200 computer terminals to 238 design teams, all of whom were linked together through 8 massive mainframe computers. Engineers from the United Kingdom, Japan, and Canada would access the latest modifications as easily as an engineer in Boeing's Seattle home. By using the latest technology, design engineers and manufacturing engineers were able to work concurrently on the design of the plane.
They designed on computers this airplane and tested it on computers, so that when they built the first one, it wasn't a prototype and it wasn't an experimental model, it was a production model. An astounding feat with a computer age as much as anything else. It used to be that you'd see banks of engineers with little slide rules and big masses of paper, and an engineering drawing had to go through 100 channels and had to be carefully tracked and so on. All that's gone. You walk into a factory nowadays, you won't find a slide rule, or probably won't find somebody that knows how to use one.
From the beginning of the project in 1990, Boeing worked closely with its customers to meet their demands. Computer graphics allowed the airlines to visualize the integration of the plane into their commercial fleets. The digital pre-assembly of the plane allowed Boeing and its customers to recognize and correct problems while the design was still in development. 4 customers, United, All Nippon Airways, British Airways, and Japan Airlines, actually had on-site representatives working with Boeing to ensure the airplane would also fit their needs and fit into the airports. The 200-foot wingspan of the 777 posed a possible problem for the airports, so Boeing introduced a mechanism that enabled 22 feet of each wingtip to fold upward and thus fit into existing gates. One of the primary concerns for the 777 design team was the airplane's 2 massive engines, which would each need to produce 80,000 pounds of thrust. Many airlines have a special arrangement with engine manufacturers, so Boeing had to rely upon 3 different companies to develop the engines. Jet engine technology has been a primary factor in the success of commercial aviation. The remarkable durability of the modern jet engine is one of the first things that influenced the decision to make the 777 the world's largest twin-engine commercial aircraft.
The second thing that had to happen after the development of engines which would run almost indefinitely without failure was sufficient thrust, and this was simply a matter of time. Each generation of engines got bigger and bigger, each one found more ways to produce more thrust, and so you finally had Rolls-Royce, General Electric, Pratt & Whitney all producing engines of sufficient thrust that you could fly a large airplane like the 777 over water with assurance, A, that neither engine would fail because they both ran so well,